Hi, I'm Alicia and welcome to my channel Papercraft Secrets. Today I'm sharing a set of 4 cards that I made with the Mintay Lovely Day collection. This is a beautiful collection with lovely pastel colours, and it's actually discontinued now, but I really do still love this collection. And I'm just showing you the easel cards that we're making today. There's a set of 4 easel cards all together, and these are a simple but fancy fold card that looks really creative and different. And I'm actually selling this as a card kit, so you can pop on over to my blog at www.papercraftsecrets.com.au and pick up your kit, and then I will post everything that you need to create these 4 cards to your home address. You can watch the YouTube video and create along with me and have success in creating these really pretty cards. Now these cards, there's 2 happy birthday cards, and there's also 2 with the love sentiment. So they could be useful for a wedding or an anniversary, or just for someone that you love. So it's a very general statement, but I know that the wedding season is coming up in the Northern Hemisphere and lots of people are starting to make wedding cards. So if you're looking for a wedding card, you could use these cards for that as well. Or if you would like to send a happy birthday card, you could send them or put them in your stash for future events that you may be invited to. So let's get started now and we'll create the cards together. So in the kit, you will receive 2 pieces of 12 A4 cardstock. And what we want to do with this cardstock is we want to cut it at 12 inches. So that will remove our barcode strip. So we've now got a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock, and we're going to cut that in half at 6 inches. So there's our 2 6 by 12 inch rectangles. So let's repeat that. We're going to line up our cardstock at 12 inches and make our cut. That removes the barcode strip. Then we're going to line up our cardstock at 6 inches and make our cut, and that gives us our 6 by 12 rectangles. Now the next thing we need to do is take our scoring board, and we're going to score each of those at 3 inches and 6 inches on the 12-inch side. So we take our 6 by 12 rectangle, we line it up on the 12-inch side at the top, we score at 3 inches and again at 6 inches. So we're doing 2 score lines, very simple. Score it at 3 inches and 6 inches. Taking our 3rd piece of cardstock, scoring it at 3 inches and 6 inches. Taking our last piece of cardstock, scoring it at 3 inches and 6 inches. That's all the scoring that we need to do for these cards. Now we will fold on the score lines. All right, so we fold our card in half, and then we fold a mountain fold so that it will sit up like an easel. And that's all we do. So we fold, that's our mountain fold, and then we've got folding our card in half. It doesn't matter which order you do the folds in. If you want to do the first one and then the second one, or the other way around, it doesn't matter. As long as you have a fold on each, that's all you need to worry about. You can see how it's pointing up like a mountain. That's why we call it a mountain fold. So folding it in half, Folding that section in half again, and that gives us our mountain fold. Last card, folding it in half. Folding it in half again, and there's our mountain. That's the hardest part of the whole card, apart from, I guess, the layering, but I'm going to talk you through that. These are an easy card to make. Anyone can do this. Kids can do this. You will have success creating these cards, and when you finish the cards, you will look at them and you'll think they're really beautiful. All right, now let's have a look at our papers. We have paper 2, paper 3, and paper 5 in our kit. We're going to cut up these beautiful papers, but don't worry, we can only improve them. We're going to do our cuts at 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 inches. So take your first piece of paper, measure on your cutting board to 5 3/4 inches, and make your cut. Move that second piece over to 5 3/4 inches and make your cut. That is a scrap. 5 3/4 inches. 5 3/4 inches. That is a scrap. That's 2. We need to do 2 more. We need 2 more squares. 5 3/4 and 5 3/4. And that's a scrap. So from that piece of paper, we cut 4 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 squares. Now we're going to move on to our next piece of cardstock. Here we go, cutting at 5 3/4 inches, 5 3/4 inches, 5 3/4, and 5 3/4. So there we go. I'm just doing this in real time so that you can cut along with me on your kit. So there's 2 of our 5 3/4 squares, and there's another one, and our last 5 3/4 squares. And I love this paper. I don't know about you, but I think this paper is just the prettiest. It's just beautiful. I love the floral clusters on the paper and the pastel colors. Moving on to our yellow page now. So we're going to cut again at 5 3/4 and again at 5 3/4. So you can see how simple this is. This is not a difficult card to make. This is quite simple and easy, but it still looks so effective. And everybody knows an easel card. It's quite a popular fold, but people who don't make cards are very impressed when they see one. All right, so there's our 4 5 3/4 yellow squares. So we have 4 in the yellow, 4 in the green, 4 and 4 in pink. So all together that is 12 coloured squares. And the paper really is gorgeous. Even though this is a discontinued paper line, I just love it. I think it's so delicate and pretty. So there's our pieces along there. All right. We are going to move on now. So have your beautiful papers handy because we're going to begin working with these papers now and adding them to our base cards. So have them somewhere nice and handy where you can see them and they're laid out and they're ready to go for you to cut. we're choosing a paper for this base square. Now this is the part where people write on. I'm actually going to choose 2 yellows for these squares here and 2 pinks. You can choose any colours that you like. Please don't feel that you have to use the same pictures and colours that I do, but of course you may. Do consider though that people are going to be writing on this paper, so you do want to have some room for them to write a message. Some of the pages have more flowers than others, and so they probably wouldn't be a lot of room to write a message. So do keep that in mind when you're choosing your papers for the base of the card. And that's why I've gone with 2 of the yellow and 2 of the pink that have a smaller amount of flowers on them. What we are going to do now is we're going to glue these squares that we have chosen onto the base of our card. Now I am using a liquid glue. It is Couture Creations. I also like Helma. You can use double-sided tape if you prefer. My choice is liquid glue because I find it quicker. I'm going to place the coloured page in the middle, and you'll see that there is a white border all the way around the edge. So when you're putting that in, you want to make sure that your border is even around the edges. So there is my pink background paper, and now I'm doing my yellow background paper. Once I'm happy that I've got enough glue on, I'm just going to glue that down onto the base page, taking time to make sure that my white borders are even and even distance all the way around. 2 down, 2 to go. Now, another thing that you can do is follow along with this video with the products that you already have at home and make your own easel cards. I'm sure that you will have some paper that you might be interested in using up that's in your stash. So you'll need 3 pieces of coordinating paper, and you'll also need some sort of die cuts or stamps or something that you can use to layer your decorations at the front. And even if you buy this kit and then after you've done it once with the kit, you might search in your stash for other papers that you could try this again with and make some more easel cards, because they really are quick, easy and impressive, and they're actually one of my favorite cards to make. I like the simple ones. So just popping some glue on the back of that one. And that is looking beautiful. Remember that card making is good for you. Crafting is good. Crafting is healing. It's good for us to have a hobby, something that we can sit down and relax and enjoy. So I'm looking at the papers that we have left now. We should have 4 green, we should have 2 yellow, and we should have 2 pink that are left. Isn't this green paper pretty? So take your 4 green papers grab your paper trimmer. We're going to be doing some more cutting now. We're going to cut these into rectangles. So our measurement will be 2 3/4 by 5 3/4. So all we need to do is put it at the 2 3/4 mark and make our cut. And then we will have 2 3/4 by 5 3/4 rectangles. So I'm measuring it at 2 3/4 and cutting. And then our other page, I'm measuring again at 2 3/4 and cutting. There we go. Trim off that little scrap. Now these little rectangles are going to fit on all the other sections of our card. We're going to have a nice white border around every section of the card. And the papers are really pretty. They match in beautifully together, but they're different at the same time from each other, but they all coordinate nicely. Alright, so we're going to move on now and we're going to cut our yellow squares. So this is going to be cut at 2 3/4 and cut again at 2 3/4. And you can choose whereabouts on your card that you want to put your yellow bits and where you want to put your green bits. It's up to you. We're going to take our pink piece of paper now. We're going to cut this at 2 3/4 and again at 2 3/4 of an inch. Maybe you might like to put that on the inside flap and maybe that on the back might be nice. Cutting our pink page at 2 3/4 and our other section at 2 3/4. And where are we going to put that? Perhaps on the inside flap and the outer flap there. And now it's time to glue these little sections onto our card. So I'm going to put some glue around the edges of my pink rectangle. And we're going to sit that on the inside in that middle section there with a white border all the way around the edges. And then this one's going to go on the back of the card. So this card is even going to look beautiful from the back. And we'll sit that on there, making sure that the white border is evenly spread around the edge. Okay, that's looking really, really pretty. Doing a wonderful job. How easy is it and how pretty is it? Because the papers do all of the work for us. If you would like to stop the video now, please do so and go through and paste on all of those rectangles on the inside and the outside of the card. So let's have a look at mine. So you can see that I've got the yellow and then the pink and the yellow. So I've sort of mixed up the colours a little bit. There's the pink there. And then on the back of the card, I've got another pink section. And there's our yellow there. And on this card, I've got the yellow in this section here and the yellow at the back. And I've got the pink in the square. And then these are the same, pink, the yellow square, and then yellow and yellow on the back. So I haven't used any of my green papers yet. I'm saving them for my front panel. But I finished all the other panels in the card. And they look really, really pretty. And because we've got the lovely white border around the edge, it just sets it off and makes it look beautiful. And it sort of looks like really pretty stationery. So they really do make a nice set of cards. And here's the back of all of the cards, which also looks really pretty. All right, well that's really, really good. We're going really well so far and we're ready to move on to our next step. So with our next step for our cards, we're using our green paper. Again, if you have already used your green paper, that's fine. You just choose the other color that you haven't used. I'm going to use my green paper for the front section and the underneath section of my cards. Alright, so what we're going to do with our green papers is we are going to cut them in the same way that we cut our other colours. So we need to make our cut at 2 3/4, and then we need to cut that again at 2 3/4. And we need to do that for all of our papers that we have. So we've got 4 squares, so we're going to cut them all into 2 pieces and that will give us 8 rectangles altogether. And here's our last little square, 2 3/4 and 2 3/4. Looking really good. A couple of little scraps there that you can pop in the bin. Now we're going to take our cards. We're going to put some glue on the back of our green papers, which are actually yellow, a plain yellow on the back. We're going to stick this here on the inside or the underside, and you can see how we're making sure our border is even on all edges. And then we will put one on the front as well. And that looks beautiful. And that is all the sections of the card that we are going to cover. So we just need to do that to the other 3 cards now. I'm just going to speed the video up for this little part here. You can press pause if you'd like to. And that's our last green rectangle that needs to be pasted down. And so now all of our cards have all of their papers in the right spots and the right sections on the cards. And the cards are looking really beautiful, very spring-like, pretty pastel colors, pretty flowers for beautiful cards. We're moving on to this page now, which is the number 9 page in the collection. And this is our Fussy cutting elements page. Okay, so we have some different pictures here that we need to cut out with our scissors so that we can use these as layers on our cards. And I'm going to teach you step by step how I laid these elements onto the front of my cards. I've already cut mine out. I've got some cameras, I've got some floral clusters, so there's the ice creams, there's little cute houses, some single flowers in pink, another camera, some sort of succulent flowers, some more cameras, another house. Now there's a couple here that I haven't cut out. That's okay, because I'll just cut out a few to demonstrate the technique of fussy cutting for those people who are interested in fussy cutting. Scissors are important. You do need a nice small pair of sharp scissors to cut this out. I like to sometimes leave a small white edge around the edge of my fussy cutting, and this makes the fussy cutting process easier. You may not want to have a white edge around the edge of your fussy cutting. Some people like it, some people don't. Sometimes I leave a white edge, sometimes I don't. It just depends on my mood and it depends on the image. But for the purpose of this card, I left white edges on these images, and that does make it easier to cut out. So you can see that I am holding my scissors in one hand and holding the ice cream in the other, and I move the ice cream with my fingers on the other hand so that I can get in and out with my scissors. If it gets tricky, cut off that scrap and start again, because sometimes you just need to get rid of that excess. Going around those little leaves. This is where having the white space comes in handy, because if you're cutting right to the line, these little leaves would be quite tricky. And down the cone, and that is finished. So there is our cone with our little white edge all around. Now here we have our pink flower. Same sort of setup. Moving the flower with your hand that isn't holding the scissors, so my left hand. Cutting with my right hand. Maneuvering the scissors around the edges of the flower, leaving a small white edge around the flower. Beautiful. And our little succulent type flower, it's got very sharp little pointy leaves. So we're going in and out, leaving a small white border around the edge of each of those little pointy leaves. All the way around. And back to the beginning. So you might like to stop the video and do this fussy cutting in front of your favorite TV show, or when your children are playing a sport of some type and you're sitting there watching. You don't have to do it at your craft room desk. You can most certainly do it, you know, away from the craft room table and get ready for the rest of the creation of the video. We are going to be decorating the front panel of our card, and I'm going to use these elements that we have fussy cut, and I'm going to layer them into a little cluster, and that's going to become the front of our card. I like these little houses. They look quite cute. You could possibly layer a floral cluster behind the houses. That looks quite nice. I like that. You don't have to do exactly what I'm going to do. You can create your own little cluster of embellishments. I like these. This house here, let's say that it went somewhere there in the middle, perhaps a pink flower behind that house, perhaps a leaf could go on one side, maybe remove the flower over there. We have the leaf popping out. That looks cute. Maybe we have another smaller house on this side. Maybe we have another little flower there. Maybe the house is in front of the flower, maybe the house is behind the flower. You can see how we're building a little embellishment cluster here on the front of the card. And this is where creativity comes in, and you get to choose what elements that you want to put together. Maybe you like an ice cream, maybe you like a camera. This is where it's your choice. I think I like the little house. Just going to put that aside here. I had these little clusters sorted out and then I messed them up and forget what I was going to do. Here's a little house, perhaps with a flower, perhaps with a green leaf, perhaps another flower, maybe a camera. It's a possibility, maybe not. Let's put those together. So I've got 4 little clusters here on my table that I'm thinking could work together. Maybe we'll add a camera into that one there, give it a bit more. They're all looking really cute. So you can see how they are on top of each other. They're not just next to each other, but they're overlapping. So that is one of the keys with layering. You actually overlap things. We're going to use some recycled cardboard, or you can use some mounting tape or some foam dots to layer your elements onto your card. I use recycled cardboard because it is a lot cheaper. And you can cut it to any size that you want, but I'm just going to cut these all to about this size so that we've got lots of small bits and pieces that we can play with. There we go, that's a good amount now, so that should be enough. Alright, so let's start with this one because this is the biggest floral cluster from the page and the prettiest. we're going to begin with gluing some of the recycled cardboard on the back of this big floral cluster. And we're going to need a couple of bits because it's such a big piece. That's going to allow it to stand out a little bit from the card, and it just adds some dimension to the card. And then I'm thinking maybe the camera in front of that, possibly in the center, possibly at one side of that floral cluster. Let's put some recycled cardboard on the back of the camera. So I'm breaking down my layering techniques in this video so that you can have success with your layering. Okay, so that's going to go probably about there. And then we have our little sentiments. Let's say we use this happy birthday sentiment. Let's look at where it could go. Could it go on the camera? Looks a bit busy. Should it go over here? That looks quite nice. Should it sort of hang a little bit off that floral cluster and just hang over the edge a little bit? We want it to be a centered image. We don't want everything down one end of the card and nothing up the other end. Then we're going to use a little flower as well. So the sentiments are in the kit, the flowers are in the kit. Everything is in the kit for you to use. And it's a really pretty flower. It's a beautiful color. So I'm thinking this looks quite nice. So notice that I haven't pasted anything down yet, because I wanted to make sure that I had everything in the right spots. But now I think I'm ready to start gluing everything together. So I'm going to add the camera onto the right hand side of that floral cluster. I'm pulling this little bit off my flower. You can pull that straight out. I'm going to have the flower in the middle. I want enough room so that you can read the happy birthday sentiment and understand what that sentiment means. And so I'm positioning my flower almost in the middle. To position the flower, I'm just using a little bit of glue and then one petal, a little bit of glue and then another petal, and then a little bit of glue and the third petal. So there's 3 layers of petals, gluing all 3 layers down. And inside your kit you're also going to get some flat back pearls, which can go in the middle of your flowers, and these just lift the flower a little bit, give it a little bit of class. So just a tiny bit of glue on the back of the flat back pearl, and then put that inside the center of the flower. It can be a little bit tricky because it can get stuck to your fingers. All right, that's looking gorgeous. And then the happy birthday is going to go just next to the flower there. Make sure our camera is nice and straight. Alright, so we're going to put a little bit of glue on half of the sentiment because we're only going to glue half of it onto the floral cluster and the other half is just going to hang over the top. It's not going to actually touch the back paper because there's that gap where the cardboard is. Just position that where we need it to be. And then we're going to finally glue down our major piece here. And we're going to put that on the front of our card, all of our layers They look gorgeous. Just move that over so that that happy birthday is not on the edge. We don't want anything hanging off too much. And get it in the center. And that is really pretty. I love that. It's beautiful. And there's our first card done. Looking really nice. If you wanted to ink your chipboard sentiment, you could cover it with ink. We are going to move on now. That's our first card and it's looking gorgeous. It's time to move on to our second card now. Thinking about a different little floral cluster that we might want to use. We're going to basically repeat the same sort of thing that we did on this card on all of the other cards. You can see how it folds down flat. The card folds flat so that you can fit that card into an envelope. So that's another advantage about the easel cards. All right, let's move on to card number 2. Let's create a little bit of room here with our embellishments out of the way. And this is where I accidentally ruined my cluster that I'd already pre-planned, and then I had to recreate again, but that's okay. There's no right or wrong way to do these clusters. You have the freedom to choose whatever you like. I'm going to pick this one here. It is a house, 3 houses all together. The bigger the cluster, the easier it is to fill the space. I've picked a big pink flower and a little green leaf branch. I'm thinking maybe the love sentiment from the kit for this one. And I'm thinking about a flower. This flower, perhaps it is a yellow flower. It's got like a tiny tinge of purple on the edge of its petals. And that looks quite cute and quite nice. Maybe I have the love sentiment in the middle and the flower on the side, but I think I prefer the flower in the middle and this sentiment on the side. All right, so let's get some recycled cardboard or some mounting tape on the back of these houses, and let's get this card pasted down. Whoops. A little bit of glue on that one and a little bit of glue on this one, and I'm going to go for a third one as well. Seeing there's 3 houses, and that'll keep it nice and even on my card. I'm going to put a little bit of cardboard on this flower. I'm not going to put cardboard on the back of my leaf. I'm going to leave my leaf at the same level as the base of the card. There we go, that's looking nice. So I'm ready to glue this down. I'm going to glue my little leaf on first. A little bit of glue on each of them. And that's going to go at the bottom in the corner, right to the end. You can see how my flower is underneath the houses. So the houses overlap almost half of the flower, about a third of the flower. And then the flower overlaps the leaf. So you're not seeing the whole leaf. It's not sticking out the whole way. It is only a little bit that's sticking out, depending on how wide your card is, as to how much you want to fill up your space. A little bit of glue on the back of that one and gluing that down in the center of the card. looking really nice. A little bit of glue on the back of my love sentiment. And sometimes you get those little stringy bits of glue in between. You can use your scissors to just clean away those little tiny stringy bits of glue so that you don't have those. There we go. Positioning the love on the house closest to the right hand side. And now I'm layering my petals. There's the first layer and the second layer and the first layer at the very top. And then what I'm going to do is add a little bit of glue to the center of the flower, and then I can place my flat back pearl into the center of the flower. Now remember, you get these in the kit. Everything's included in the kit. Apart from glue and scissors, your paper trimmer isn't included and your scoreboard isn't included, or recycled cardboard. But other than that, all the products that you need to create these cards are in the kit. So you'll be able to see that you have everything you need to recreate these exact cards at home. And if you want them to look exactly the same, you will be able to make them look exactly the same. Or you may prefer to use some of your own creativity and, you know, try your own designs. It's up to you. All right, so that's 2 of our cards finished now. Not finished, but the front bit, the clustering is done. So now we're going to move on to the 3rd card for the cluster. And I'm thinking perhaps the house, perhaps, and the floral cluster at the back. Maybe a pink one over this side to balance it out. Do we need our green leaf? We could put our green leaf in. Maybe it's a little bit too big. So we are going to move on to our 3rd card now. And let's just get a few of these elements that we might like to use. So we've got the floral cluster, we have got the little house, and we have got the pink flower. Shall we use the happy birthday sentiment, or shall we use the love sentiment? Both look nice. The little house kind of reminds me of a church. So it sort of reminds me a little bit of a wedding card. Let's put some recycled cardboard on the back of that large floral cluster. And that can go on the sort of left-hand side. And then we've got our little house. Let's use a bit more recycled cardboard on the underside of our flower. There we go. Cute little flower, and a little bit on the back of our house. Beautiful. Shall we have our sentiment over there on the little floral cluster, and our little flower? Let's pull out the center of that flower. So just pull that back bit off, then that front bit comes off easily. Slide it out there. So we've got our 2 blooms sort of layered together. Right, let's get this glued down. I'm just going to move them out of the way a little bit. All right, so the big floral cluster on first. So right on the left-hand side, the leaves are just on the edge of the left-hand side. And then our pink flower, the little house is going to go on top, but we want enough room for our sentiment. And then we have our other flower in the middle. So it's all about sort of balancing it out so that it fits nicely. All right, let's glue that down. I'm happy with that there in that position. All right, we pop that on there on the outside, on the right-hand side, I should say. And then we've got our little house. The house is sort of in the middle, but it's on the left-hand side of the middle. Glue that on there. Make sure it's nice and straight. And then we have our love sentiment. I'm just going to run some glue over that. And then just take my scissors to just get rid of any of those stringy little bits of glue in the gaps. And we'll put that there. That looks good. And then some glue just there next to that flower there. And we're going to put our blossom on there with its 3 layers. You do need a little bit of glue in between each layer just to make sure that it's securely fastened onto the card. And then a little bit of glue in the center of the card for our flat back pearl. And that is looking gorgeous. So pretty. Beautiful. See how easy it is to layer some elements together and create such a gorgeous card. We could have another little flower up there if we wanted. What do you think? Do we need it? I think that looks quite cute. Let's glue that little flower on up there. We might as well use as much of these bits and pieces that we can. There we go. That's that bit done on that card. Let's move on to our last card now for our layering of embellishments. We are nearly finished. Our cards are looking gorgeous. You're doing a great job. All right, so here we have our 2 houses, our larger yellow house, our smaller pink house. We've got a little green flower for this card. It's not often that you see a green flower. Sometimes it's very common to have pink and red and yellow, but not very often you have a green one. But people do like the colour green. So this is a nice different colour for a flower. And this is a happy birthday card because that's the last sentiment that we have left. So just positioning, we've got the little house on the right-hand side, the big house in the middle, and a pink flower on the left-hand side of the card. And now we're going to come in with our recycled cardboard onto the back of all of those little elements. All right, so we're going to add the recycled cardboard to the back of the flower. And we're going to use this little succulent flower as well on this card. We haven't used one of those yet. And we'll need one on both of the houses to give them a little bit of elevation off the card. There we go. Now we're going to position everything in place. So we have our big house. We have our little house. Oh, I've changed the order of those houses. You can have your houses in any order you like. They're slightly overlapping. The little house is overlapping the pink flower. The succulent is going underneath the yellow house. The happy birthday sentiment is going to go over there somewhere. And the green flower is going to go on the middle of the yellow house. Beautiful. Let's just grab our flat back pearl and we'll pop that on the inside of our green flower. That looks pretty. We need to glue our happy birthday sentiment down. We could add another little flower on there. That looks quite cute. So it's overlapping both the house and the succulent flower. The key to layering is using cardboard to create depth between each layer, and it's overlapping things. And there's our happy birthday sentiment, and you can see how it's sort of half hanging off that pink house. So it's like a little cottage garden, that card. All right, we are nearly finished our cards now. We just have one more job to do. And we're going to add some lace to our cards so that our cards can sit up nicely in their easel form. You can see how they're sort of, the front is just flopping forward. We don't want that. We want our cards to sit up nicely on their own. So you can see how I'm measuring on my pink cutting board. I'm actually measuring 2 inches. Each one of those little squares is ½ an inch. So you can see there's 4 inches. I'm going to measure 4 inches, and that's where I'm going to put my lace. And that's going to hold our easel card so that it sits up really nicely and straight on its own. Well, my little flat back pearl's trying to escape. Let me just secure that back on. So we're looking at a 2-inch measurement from the edge of the card going backwards to where we want our lace. And here's our really pretty lace that we're going to use, and this will be included in your kit. So you will have this lace that you can use on your cards. You can see how I need to cut my lace to the width of the card. So I'm just going to cut that right in the middle there of that arc. And then I'm going to put a line of glue at 2 inches horizontally across my card. Just like that. And then I'm going to glue that on like that. Now when that has dried, that will hold the card in position properly, but you don't really want to put it up like that just yet because you'll get glue over the front of your card. So just leave it to dry before you sort of try it out. It'll sit perfectly like that. And you've got this beautiful lace. I really do like this lace. It's very pretty. You've got this lace going across, horizontally across the card at 2 inches in. And then that allows the card to sit up beautifully. Gorgeous job, everybody. You're doing such a good job here. All right, let's do that again. We need to repeat this process. So I'm measuring up 2 inches from the bottom to here, my 4th line. I'm doing a line of glue across there. You could use a ruler if you wanted a guideline of where to put your glue. And then I am going to add some lace. This time I'm going to cut it right there in the middle. And I'm going to stick that on there. That looks lovely. And then that is our completed card. Beautiful. So easy, but it's just that finishing touch that just makes it look completely finished. And of course, it allows the card to sit up nicely on its own. All right, let's do that for our 3rd card. Measure up 2 inches, run a line of glue horizontally across. We're going to cut that to fit. This time it'll be in the middle of the arch. And we're going to lay that on our glue line at 2 inches on either side. Beautiful. Looking good. Very nice. I like the lace. It adds to the cottage feel of the cards. And our last card now, measuring up 2 inches, and applying a line of glue. And then our lace across there. So pretty. And there we go. There's our finished cards. Now once that glue has dried, you can then play around with how cleverly your cards will sit up all on their own. Doesn't it look pretty? And there's plenty of space inside there above the lace where you can write your birthday message or your wedding message. There we go. Beautiful. Such an elegant card with a little bit of a cottage feel to it. Beautifully made, simple, but really effective with the right papers. Now, if you would like to purchase a kit, you need to head on over to my website, which is www.papercraftsecrets.com.au. Then I can post the kit out to you and you can watch the video and craft along with me in the comfort of your own home. You will also then have 4 beautiful cards that you can give to family or friends, or you can even sell these cards, you know, to your friends, or at work, have a box of cards at work and sell cards at work, or at a market or something like that. So these cards are a little bit special, so you can charge a little bit more for these cards because they've got that special fold. You can say maybe like $7 to $10 for a card like this, especially if it's a wedding card and it's going to be, you know, the gift. A lot of weddings, they just ask for money and you need something to put the money in. So, you know, that would be nice. That would be a lovely gift for a bride and groom. And so we have done a wonderful job. You have done a wonderful job in creating these beautiful cards. And we've had a lot of fun in the process, and we've learned a lot about layering elements in this tutorial. So I would love it if you could give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely crafty day.